afternoon, everybody. So here we are on Meet the Farmer week 3, and today I feel to just share with you about some of the legal stuff, some of the paperwork side of things that we have to do, some of the rules and regs we have to comply by. I don't think I'll cover them all, but just a select few that we have to follow. So we are red tractor assured on this farm, and we have been for a long time now. And essentially what that means is you have a rule book and guidelines that you must follow in order to make sure that you comply to be red tractor accredited. So a lot of you may have seen the red tractor logo in the supermarkets, in shops and things like that. And it essentially means that that farm that it's been bought from has met the standards that we've been given. So some of these standards that are required by the red tractor are things like mainly towards animal health and welfare. So in the spring and the summer on this farm, things are much easier to manage and do, like, take care of than it is obviously in the winter, because everything's out in a field, so there's a lot of space. There's clean ground for them to lie on and things like that. So a lot of what we have to be conscious of in the winter is making sure that our animals have somewhere relatively clean and dry to lie, because you have to bear in mind cattle don't pick where they poo. They're not like pigs, so they will literally poo and pee in their bedded area. And so it's important that you don't have too many in one shed. So one of the things that we have to go by is that there's a certain space that one cow takes up and one calf takes up, and we have to make sure that our cattle kind of fit in the shed and things like that, and they're not crammed, because if they're crammed in, it can prevent airflow and things like that, so they get things like pneumonia and colds and just generally get unwell. So we don't want that either, because that's a big vet and med bill on our part. If you get like some kind of illness or disease that happens because you've got too many cattle indoors. Another thing we have to be wary of is making sure so there's basically all this paperwork that needs to be done, and the one thing that challenges me with this whole accreditation system is that as long as the paperwork's done, they spend more time talking about the paperwork than they would looking at the animals, walking around the farm and getting a general feel for the place themselves. And this has always been an annoyance to me, because anyone could fill out the paperwork the day before, or hopefully not the day before, but the week before, and comply. But in fact, it's what's happening outside. And again, it's become one of these industries, farming, where we're looking at the surface stuff all the time. So what everything looks like, as long as it's all sitting pretty, then it's okay. But we're not looking at the nitty gritty stuff, like the bit underneath the surface that's, potentially causing health problems or causing the soil to not grow, plants properly and things. So although the red tractor scheme is there to make sure that the standard of welfare and health and welfare is high in terms of animals not injuring themselves, we have to put our horse box number on there, and like all these different things we have to do for the red tractor kind of accreditation to make sure that the health and welfare of the animal is covered in that sense. Actually, it's not encouraging us to look deeper. So for us, one of my passions and one of my goals in life is to have healthier animals, healthier sheep, healthier cattle, And that, I believe, doesn't come from injecting more antibiotics or drenching more with pest drenches for worms and things like that, which we have managed to reduce by half in 10 years. Like, and it's going down, it's getting less every single year. Like, our antibiotic use at lambing is so much less, and that's because the general health of the sheep is my priority. So we look at it from like a year view rather than just in that moment. What can we do to make sure that the sheep is in like its utmost health when it comes to lambing, when it comes to going to the ram and things like that? So it's a work in progress, you know. I haven't got it perfect, but I do really hope that in the future it will be really key for us as farmers, and particularly for the bottom line, because we have this sense of farming has all become, and I think this is in other industries as well, but it's all become about, you know, if it's okay, then don't fix it. But actually, what we have deemed as okay isn't what's right, you know. So we deem that a few sheep being lame is okay because it's sheep, and that's become an okay thing. We also think it's okay to drench our sheep with wormer on a regular basis rather than checking to see if they need it first. We just chuck it in there anyway. What a waste of time, what a waste of energy, and what a waste of money. And I can see how I've wasted so much energy, so much time and so much money over my lifetime of farming, or in my working lifetime since I was 10, so 20 years, how so much time and energy has been wasted doing things which actually could have been prevented in the first place. You know, that could have been just a given. We seem to want to make our lives incredibly difficult in farming, and I don't think that is our fault. I think that's just how it's become, that we have been instructed in the last 100 years how we should farm, what we should do, that we should follow these guidelines. And so we've lost our ability to stand on our own farm and go, what is it we need to do, not what we should be doing. Now, animal welfare and things should always be at the absolute top. Like, I hate animals in pain. I hate things that are lame. I looked out the window today and there's a lame cow because they did her foot at the weekend. And I just think, why? I'm not happy. I'm not happy to just say, oh, it's okay. You know, I had a conversation with our vet last year about, you know, coccidiosis. We had coccidiosis in our sheep, and it was a killing strain. So they would get it, the lambs would get it within 3 weeks, and they would start dying incredibly quickly. And so I was like, right, how can we get rid of coccidiosis? How can we get rid of it? Because I don't want this on my farm. I do not want to be drenching for this. It costs a lot of money to drench for coccidiosis. It's one of the most expensive drenches there are out there. It costs us 500 quid a bottle to be able to drench our sheep with that. And so in my mind, I'm like, right, how can we get rid of it? How can we get rid of the coccidiosis completely? I want to get rid of it. And so that conversation, I know I said last year, but it was a few years ago, this conversation about the coccidiosis. So I was like, okay, we'll just take some steps to try and get rid of it. Well, for the last 2 years, we have managed to get rid of it. We have managed to completely get rid of coccidiosis. Does that mean that it might not come back in the future? Or it might come back in the future? Who knows? I don't know. But for the last 2 years, we haven't had to spend that 500 or sometimes £1,000 if you've got to drench them twice, or if you need more, whatever, it depends on your numbers of sheep. We haven't had to do it. So I had a conversation with my vet the other day and said, you know, I would like to, I needed to get a small amount of coccidiosis drench to drench our rams that we bought on and our sheep, so that they didn't take on another strain of coccidiosis. And he was like, yeah, but I'm sure you've probably got coccidiosis anyway, so you don't need to quarantine. I was like, well, actually, we've managed to get rid of it. We've managed to get rid of the coccidiosis because it was causing such a problem in the health of our lambs. You know, they were dying. They would literally, I watched one day out of the kitchen window, and it was fine and dandy 1 minute and dead the next, literally. And it was because the burden of coccidiosis that we had on the land, which it had ingested and was now in its body, had literally destroyed its insides and killed it. And so this is always something that I'm always constantly asking myself. Foot rot is the next thing. Sheep's feet are just a pain. They seem to always be lame. So if you are somebody who doesn't live on a farm, or you know, go walking in the countryside and you see lame sheep, I tell you what, we work very hard on our lame sheep, many of us, and they will continue to be lame. They will continue to get lame. You might get it over it 1 minute, and then the next minute it's lame again, and it's like, for goodness sake. And I know I can't speak for every single farmer out there, but for the majority of us, it is something that we are constantly working on. And we have reduced the numbers of lame sheep on this farm massively. We have. But there's still some that still continue to get lame feet and things like that. And I 100% believe now that it's because we haven't been taking care or looking at the mineral parts of what our animals are eating in the grass and in the plants and things like that. And that comes essentially from the soil food web. So underneath the soil, there's this amazing hive of activity going on. Absolutely amazing it is. And I've only just started discovering the amazingness of our soil. But underneath there's this whole little factory of things going on to enable the plants that come up in, you know, on our fields to be the best they can be for our animals. And that then means that they have everything they need in their diet to keep them fit and healthy. And so what has happened is, on our farm for however many years, 80 to 100 years, they've been using what is called artificial fertilizer, which is basically little white balls of fertilizer with things like nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus. They sometimes put sulfur in there, and they basically have made it up. And it was required by the government back during the Second World War, after the Second World War, that artificial fertilizer must be used to grow food, that we needed more food, and that is what needed to be done. Now back then it probably was a saving grace, and they managed to get lots of new food. However, we now are living in an age where the artificial fertilizer is not doing that anymore. It's not growing more food, it's growing less, and it's got a less quality. So therefore our poor animals are suffering. But I'm not told this. I'm not told to look into this kind of thing by who we've been listening to for a long time. So by the government and by their governing bodies, by DEFRA and things like that. DEFRA aren't telling us to look at these things. They are telling us to, currently we're being told to plant more trees. We're being told to look after the watercourses, to plant wildflower meadows, to do all those things. But we're not looking at the very source of our food, which is the soil. There's no kind of direction that I can see that is like, this is how we should be farming. We should be farming with nature, not against it, which is what we are currently doing. And so it's got very, very, dare I say it, political, you know, particularly when it comes to how things are, you know, as long as the boxes are ticked, then we're covered. But actually it's making us very weak as an industry, because we aren't, you know, for me, I got really upset last week because I'm struggling with the fact that I do not have the skills to create and continue to grow a viable farming business. Why is that? Why do I not know how to make it work? Why? is that. And I could blame the fact that people aren't paying enough for their food. Yes, on some levels that's true. And again, that's because the government have covered up the actual cost of food. So they've given us the subsidies for years and years and years. They've given it to us. But now we are in this place where people aren't willing to pay the true cost of their food. And our costs have gone up because we're using more fertilizer, we're using more drenches, we're using more everything. And so it's just got really toxic, you know, the whole thing around food production and beef and sheep farming. You know, then we have the whole challenge we are under regarding the vegan movement and the vegetarian movement, and it's this constant pressure on us telling us that we aren't doing a good enough job, that we aren't good enough. And why is that? Why is that? That's because 3 generations ago some decisions were made by people that aren't even here any longer, and they become the new normal. They became the new normal, and now this isn't new, what we're having to do. This regenerative agriculture movement isn't new. It's what they used to do. So it's what used to be, you know, happen on farms, taking care of the soil, not using heavy machinery, you know, growing incredibly like good quality food. That was what was happening 100 years ago. But because of some decisions that were made back when we weren't even born, we've now got this new kind of normal when it comes to growing food or farming in the UK, and it's not normal at all. It's completely not. So it's a real challenge. It's a real challenge for me as a farmer. And a farmer who wants to make it work, I will mention, because I don't want to see us go down the drain in 10 years' time because we haven't moved with the times. I don't want that. I don't want to see my friends' farms go down the drain in 10 years' time because we haven't moved with the times. But I still want to have beef and sheep on this farm. I love my cows, I love my sheep, and I love the fact that we can produce amazing quality food which can change the health of a person. It is 100% up to an individual what it is they want to eat, you know? And if that involves meat, then I'm happy to sell it to them. If it involves good quality vegetables or anything like that, then if we ever go into veg growing and stuff like that, I'd be happy to supply that to customers, but knowing in my heart that it was the best quality that I could be producing from our land, and using the cattle and the sheep as the kind of mini machines to poop and eat and create that soil that we need to be able to do that. So I've done some other videos regarding soil and carbon sequestering and things like that. You can take a look on my YouTube channel and on this page as well, because I'm always very aware when you do live videos it can be a bit disjointed, but hopefully you will see that the message I'm trying to get across is farming as we know it currently isn't doing what it could be for the environment. We have, and I believe we're probably one of the only industries that has the potential to put carbon dioxide or carbon back under the ground and clean the air. And we can do that in the same industry. So yes, we have a carbon footprint. Yes, the cows burp and the sheep burp and we drive tractors and things like that. But we also have this massive ability to sequester our carbon and put it back under the soil using our plants, not just the trees either, but using herbs and grass and hedgerows and all, you know, Mum and I sat down, and on our 2019 figures, we worked out we are sequestering minus 20,000 tonnes of carbon just on our farm now. And we haven't even done the improvements which we are hoping to do, or, you know, in the future. We haven't built the organic matter up like we could have. We haven't encouraged the microbia and the bacteria and the fungi in the soil to come back yet, because I haven't found the right answer for it to do it on a large scale. I think it might be coming, that I might find that. So it is a very challenging time for farmers, incredibly challenging, because although I can see these things, there are many of you out there that don't even understand about carbon sequestering, and that's another thing. You know, why haven't we been taught? I have done so much self research. I look at, my sister-in-law thinks I'm sad because I get very excited about soil, very excited about soil meetings, about learning things by other people on YouTube and all sorts of things like that. And I really believe that it's what can make the difference to UK farming now is, yes, we need to farm with the environment in mind, but it can't be this segregated thing of, right, we need to rewild everywhere and get rid of the cows and sheep. It can't be that way, because you need the cows and the sheep to eat the grass to release the carbon from the roots, because otherwise it won't do anything. It will get so far and it will stop carbon cycling, or it will reduce it massively. Whereas when you've got your cows and your sheep eating, it goes, oh, release the carbon, let's start cycling again. And so it's so, you know, we have such a part to play. We have such a part to play, UK farmers, and that's the dairy industry as well. It's not just beef and sheep. I'm just talking from beef and sheep point of view. And I really honestly believe that we can change, that we can change things for the better, that we can change things to what they were, or maybe even what they are going to be. Maybe we can even improve on what they were doing 100 years ago. Who knows? None of us know. But I'm excited by the possibility that there is positive change coming within the industry. That yes, we have to do certain things, we have to follow certain criteria and things like that. And it is tough sometimes. And it does feel like we're kind of the scapegoats. It feels like we're scapegoats for so many things that go wrong in the UK. Let's blame the farmer, and that can be really disheartening and really disjointing as well, because we are the food producers. We're producing the food that this country is eating, yet everything seems to be our fault. And why is that? What is happening? What is the big agenda? You know, because I, for one, am not willing to go down without a fight. And I hope if you are a farmer in the UK that you aren't either, because there is hope out there and we can do it. And I think it's coming together, sharing knowledge, sharing what is going on, what we are seeing on our own farms, and just being a team, being a family, whatever it needs to be. So I think, I was just going to so just in terms of paperwork and things like that, other paperwork we have to do, I just looked at my notes. Other paperwork we have to do is our cattle have to be registered. So as soon as they're born, they have to be individually registered to go to market. If we sell them to market, they have to go with their passports. If we sell them to livestock, to the abattoir, they have to go with their passports. And then there's a big old system that knows exactly how many cattle there are in this country at one time. We have to always make sure that our cattle have passports, otherwise we can't sell them, essentially. The sheep our sheep are all electronically tagged, individually tagged at birth, so we know who their mummy is and what it is that they might need or have needed, if they've needed any antibiotics and why they might have needed that antibiotics. We have to, so if we should use any antibiotics or drenches of any description, there is a withdrawal date on those, and that is the least amount of time that we have to, that the animal mustn't go into the food chain. So for example, there's a lot of antibiotic injections that you have to wait 28 days before you can send the animal to the abattoir, because you don't want it left in the meat and stuff like that. And I think those are important things. I think that's important for it to be there, that we don't want to be sending meat that's potentially still got chemical medical medicines in it. So yeah, there's probably other bits and pieces as well, but I hope this video has been interesting to you. If you require or have any questions about anything else, then please do send me a message or let me know what you think about the video. You can check out my YouTube channel and also look back over the videos on this page, because it might just clarify just what I'm trying to succeed in on our farm. And yeah, thanks for listening.